Hello and welcome to the Cleveland Browns Dog Pound South podcast, part of the Fanatical L's Network, which is part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Steve Gill, your host, and training camp has begun. We're getting videos of plays and formations and workouts and individual drills and player interviews, coaches interviews. Andrew Berry got interviewed. So it's start of camp, and some news slowly came out yesterday, over the weekend, and today. Um, Over the weekend, Kevin Stefanski, who usually doesn't say anything in his news conferences, mentioned a few things. One that caught my eye or caught my ear was the fact that Deshaun Watson will have the capacity to call plays in the huddle, given certain circumstances. And also, he will be making the line calls, the offensive line calls, usually done by the center or guard. But apparently, and I didn't know this, he did this when he was with Houston. He'd call out the offensive line adjustments. So he's going to be allowed to do that. And also, Kevin Stefanski showing a little more openness and a little more willingness to be less stubborn with his offense is going to let Deshaun Watson, in certain critical situations, change the play in the huddle, which is what got Baker Mayfield in trouble, and he's no longer with the team. But I love it. I love it. Deshaun Watson is a franchise quarterback. He knows the situations he's been in. And speaking of which, because I don't have a hobby, and on weekends, unless it's tax season, I'm usually not working. I decided to go back and watch highlights of games from 2018, Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I noticed quite a few things that I was totally wrong about. I thought he ran into a lot of sacks because of his mobility, because of him scrambling. Actually, a lot of his sacks came right up the middle. The defense just overpowered the center and the guards. And sometimes he had plenty of time. There was great coverage. His wide receivers, Will Fuller was pretty good. They had a guy named Cutie, but of course, DeAndre Hopkins was his main target, along with tight ends. But after DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller didn't have a lot of well-known targets. As a matter of fact, when the season started in 2018, Houston's running back was a guy named Alfred Blue. I don't even remember Alfred Blue. But anyway, he did get sacked when he scrambled out of the pocket when there was pressure. So I was totally wrong about that. So I would assume that with Bill Callahan and our excellent up the middle positions of center and two guards, Posick, Teller, and Batonio, we can probably negate some of that pressure up the middle that he got back in 2018. Also, I noticed he's very accurate. I mean, he throws a great football. But yeah, let's and the way they're talking so far in news conferences, Andrew Berry mentioned he thought that the relationship between Stefanski and Watson was excellent. That he thought that Coach Stefanski was more open to change and being more creative with the offense, which I love to hear. So I'm not much worried about. I'm feeling a little better about the Deshaun Watson after those last 6 games. I know everybody, and I don't blame you, that Steeler game stuck in my head all off season. I still shake my head. Last game of the season, Detroit has an opportunity to knock Green Bay out of the playoffs. And what do? They take on their chief rival and do it. The Browns had an opportunity to give Mike Tomlin his first losing season, and they blew it. So, and yeah, that still just irritates me. But anyway, also some good news. It looks like Sione Taki will be, everything is progressing well. He will be ready for the season opener, not put on the PUP list. Also with Anthony Walker, also looking well. I'm still a little worried about the depth at linebacker. You really don't want the special teams guys, Matthew Adams and Kunachik, I think I pronounced that right, starting. We saw that last year. Doesn't work out. You really don't know about Jacob Phillips. He flashed a few times last year when he was put into the starting position, but and right now there are no street free agents available. So they're going to have to run with this crew that they have now. Also, I found it interesting that Andrew Berry, in addressing the defensive tackle position since the cutting of Perion Winfrey, geez, who saw that coming? The guy was down to one strike and he blew it. I hope he gets help, but, you know, I thought he would at least make it through the West Virginia trip, but he didn't even make it to training camp. So he had mentioned that still evaluating the roster when somebody asked him about the defensive tackle position. Of course, you're going to hear the standard names, Matt Ioannidis, who I love. There's some other ones, Shelby Harris, and I've heard a name, Akeem Hicks, which seems to be a very popular defensive tackle with some teams. He's been contacted by a few teams, and I believe he's been contacted by the Browns. So I wouldn't mind any of those. That's very, very. I think we need a veteran presence on the line. You're only going to get out of Dalvin Tomlinson, about 55, 60 snaps a game. Sika Ika is only probably going to be in there on noticeable running downs. And I know Zadarius Smith can play inside and outside, kind of like Clowney did the last 2 years. And then you'd have Garrett and Oranquo on the ends. You could play a little Alex Wright on the inside. By the way, I saw a video today of Myles Garrett showing him some techniques on the sidelines. I forgot how big he is. Alex Wright is huge. But anyway, but I still think they need a veteran defensive tackle to put in the rotation. You can't count on the same guys that started last year doing the majority of the plays this year. I know Jim Schwartz is a better defensive coordinator than Joe Woods. Joe Woods emphasized the secondary. Jim Schwartz is going to emphasize pressure. He still doesn't want to call his defense a wide nine. A wide nine opens up some running lanes for running backs. He wants to clog those lanes with a maze of players so the running backs don't get past, or if they do get past the line of scrimmage, they don't get very far. He's also going to play a lot of man-to-man, which I love. If you're a defensive back and your guy lines up in the slot, guess what? You're the slot corner. Let's get away from it. He will play some three deep. He has the capacity to do that with his safeties. Delpit, got to have a big year from Delpit this year, but I like that he is going to be strong safety. That's his natural position. And Juan Thornhill, finally, we have a actual free safety playing free safety. It's been decades. It's been a while. And then you got Rodney McLeod, who can do both, can cover the run, can cover. He could even play some slot. He could start for some NFL teams right now, but chose the Browns to take the opportunity and also work with Jim Schwartz again. What else? What other things did I pick up listening to interviews? I noticed that I could have sworn I heard Kevin Stefanski say today that he's going to have some starters play in the second preseason game and the fourth preseason game. I had forgotten in the past, anytime the Browns go and do, workouts with another team prior to a preseason game, he doesn't start his starters during the preseason game. He did that last year with Philadelphia. The workouts were starters, and then he held the starters out for the preseason game. So it's looking like Washington week 2, and then at Kansas City week 4. Usually the last game is a throwaway game, but we all know Andy Reid loves to play Patrick Mahomes right from the start in preseason games and start him all the games. He doesn't care. He's confident in his player. So we might see a little starters. Now, is Nick Chubb going to play in these preseason games? God, I hope not. Well, Myles Garrett, yeah, new defensive coordinator, new defensive scheme. So I expect to see Zadarius Smith and Myles Garrett playing in the week 2 and the week 4 preseason game. Let's take a quick break right here. Then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what else I heard. That apparently there was one quote from Andrew Berry that I totally missed and somebody else picked up on. Okay. I totally missed this. A quote from Andrew Berry about the running backs. And a guy I follow on Twitter, Jake Burns, Jake_Burns18. Saw this and posted it on Twitter. It was Andrew Berry talking about the running backs, and he said, "Feel really good about Jerome Ford, and who had a strong spring, pass protection especially. We think his receiver skills are strong. There will be competition behind him, and remains to be seen who will emerge." Now, I've been feeling pretty good about the running back room with Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford, even though Jerome Ford, as my fellow podcaster, Elliot, the Village Elliot, pointed out on Thursday's show that and constantly points out, he's only had 12 yards total rushing. And I got to thinking about after Thursday's show, which you can go back and watch. We had Paul Brown from England, saw Buckingham Palace, which was really cool. I'm starting to agree with Elliot that the running back room needs a little upgrading. And this sounds like Andrew Berry feels the same way. You got to read between the lines with Berry and Stefanski. And I have a feeling that they are not to say anything about Felton. I think Felton and Ford are the same type of player. And you need a veteran. You need a veteran in the backfield to at least give Nick Chubb a break. You can't play Nick Chubb 100% of the snaps, offensive snaps, every game for 17 games. You've got to bring in a veteran guy, somebody who can run. And, I've heard Ezekiel Elliott, and I've heard bring back Kareem Hunt, although Buffalo had a running back who got hurt prior to training camp in a non-football accident. I haven't heard what it is, but they're already down a back. And I've seen Kareem Hunt tied to the Bills and the Commanders, or whatever the heck they're going to call themselves. And Ezekiel Elliott, got to wait till his price comes down. He would make sense, but he's going to have to realize he's going to have to take less money, and it's going to have a smaller role with the team. But we'll find out. But definitely I am agreeing with Elliot. Elliot, if you're watching this, I am agreeing with you. We need a veteran running back. The running back room is short. So also, I was watching videos today, besides seeing Myles Garrett be a team guy. Shock of shocks. Thought you people told me he wasn't a team guy. Helping out Alex Wright with some technique, how to use his arms and hands. I also thought, and I had mentioned this guy before, I love Hakeem Grant as a punt returner. I wrote in my blog over the weekend that my money was on him making the team. Although he doesn't have any guaranteed money, he reworked his deal, so cutting him really wouldn't cost the team anything. But apparently, Jalen Darden was not only working well with Deshaun Watson on passing drills, but was fielding punts. So keep an eye on Jalen Darden. I want to see him in game competition. I hope he's healthy and makes it into the Hall of Fame game. I'd like to see, because we're probably not going to see. I know we're not going to see Deshaun Watson, even though back in '99 Troy Aikman started against the Browns in the Hall of Fame game, but that was a different era. But I want to see what he does during games. He might be a surprise pick if Marquise Goodman doesn't can't make the team because of the blood clots. Now, as for injuries, they talked about Amari Cooper. They don't think it's very serious. They suggested early morning news conference that he'd be on the field today. He wasn't. He was on the sidelines. That's something to keep an eye on. But they're not too worried about it. They're still assuming Marquise Goodman is going to be all right to make the team, but blood clots are serious. This is serious. It's kind of in his lungs and his legs. I just don't see it happening. So if he doesn't, if he's put on the PUP list, which could, I think Jalen Darden has the best chance to be number 6 wide receiver. You're looking at Amari Cooper, DPJ, Elijah Moore, who, by the way, there's a video of him running out of the backfield. I love it. Line up all over the place. David Bell, Cedric Tillman, those guys are locked. And then you have Marquise Goodwin. So I would think that Jalen Darden has the best shot to replace Marquise Goodwin. What else did I see today? Oh, they did their first kind of slow-mo 11-on-11s. The starting defensive line was, of course, Tomlinson, Elliott, Garrett, and Smith. They had Emerson and Ward at the corners, and they had Newsome in the slot. So, also they talked about JOK. Needs to stay healthy. Coach Stefanski alluded that he needs to play smarter and not as reckless. He still wants to get his aggressiveness, but there's a difference between playing aggressive and playing reckless. I know with the new scheme that Jim Schwartz is going to run, it's all defensive pressure, defensive line pressure, but the linebackers have to be there to clean up what's left. Also a safety brought up like in Delpit or McLeod. So JOK needs to stay healthy. Grant Delpit needs to stay healthy. What else? A lot of people are speculating that Jalen Darden would take David Bell's spot. That's not going to happen. David Bell is going to make this team. Let's see what he can do. He didn't help himself having training camp injuries. So that's it for this week. Oh, another thing, we got to improve the pressure improvement. And I totally forgot about this, that last year the defense only had 34 sacks, which was 28th in the league. And as if you remember, Myles Garrett had 16 of those 34. So I expect that to change drastically under Jim Schwartz. And somebody that never gets mentioned, Jim Washburn. Jim Washburn is a special advisor, just like Jim Schwartz was an advisor for the Titans last year. Jim Washburn, veteran defensive line coach, veteran, good eyes to have, additional set of eyes to have, good teacher, also good relationship with Namagan Suh, who is still out there, but he usually waits till like the last 6 weeks of the season before he picks the team. He wants to go to a team that's pretty much guaranteed to go to the playoffs. He doesn't need training camp. So Suh will not be an option to be signing before the start of the season. So that's it for today's show. I just wanted to show you something of my many T-shirts. Today I'm wearing a Middle Tennessee. There you go. Check it out. Middle Tennessee Brownsbacker T-shirt. I know it looks like a label of a Jack Daniels bottle. A little known fact, like Disney, if you use anything that looks like Jack Daniels will sue the crap out of you unless you get permission. And the the members over at the Middle Tennessee Browns backers got their permission. It's a cool T-shirt. I love this shirt. So that's where I'll be watching the first game with my fellow Browns backers. So shout out to all the Browns backers out there. So that's today's show. I'll be watching a lot of social media videos and listening to a lot of interviews between now and the next show. And also now, hopefully we'll be on Thursday night with John and hopefully Elliot and maybe even Joel, or maybe even Sam. So this is the Cleveland Browns Dog Pound South podcast, part of the Fanatical Elves Network, which is part of the Fans First Sport Network. All I ask that you do is you follow, you download or view or listen. You can Spotify, Apple, YouTube. You can find us everywhere. Just give us a listen, give us a watch, and give us a follow. So that's all for this week. See you next week. Also, watch for my articles with clevelandsportstalk.com. And I've started writing my Dog Pound South blog again because I can be a little more free with my opinions on my blog than I can with my articles. So thanks for watching. Remember, you can find us anywhere you find any blog or podcast, any podcast or video or anything. Just follow along, download, listen, view, and that's it for this week. Go Browns.